I've just watched a very unsettling video, and it appears to have been recorded by someone who was either participating in or a witness to this incident. And I'm referring to the Delhi religious violence. So basically, in this particular incident, there was a guy on the ground, a Muslim, and there's no other way to put it. He was basically being beaten to, well, beaten to death, or at least that appeared to be the attempt by the perpetrators. I don't think he died, but apparently 38 people have died in this unrest. And this particular incident, it was sickening, absolutely sickening. Mob of guys around. They had orange garlands, so Hindus in this case. They were. The guy was already. It looked like he was unconscious or at least semi-conscious. They were stamping on his head. One guy was repeatedly punching him in the face as he was on the ground. Another guy jumped on his chest. Really just inhumane, barbaric behavior. There's no other way to put it. And it looks like if they weren't trying to kill him, they were certainly trying to leave him in hospital. After about 2 minutes, police arrived. Whether that's because his family or people from afar called them, I don't know, or whether it's just because they're patrolling in general because of this violence. Um, but they came, they aided the man, they got him up. He was pretty much unconscious. They got him in a stretcher. I have a few questions about that incident. Why? Who was filming it? Were they part of the attack? If not, then why did the police not ask for that footage to be handed over as evidence? Um, I mean, it's good the police aided him, but no arrests were made. And I appreciate two police officers can't arrest a whole mob, but clearly they've seen that something has happened. Now, what's troubling is that was just one incident. 38 people have died. Mosques have been burnt out. Homes have been burnt out. Um, this is nothing short of a bloody religious pogrom. And it shamed India. Okay? Um, there's a few angles I want to take with this. Firstly, the fact of the matter is there are some Hindus that are in denial about this. They say that it's not that bad, it's being exaggerated. I've seen some guys on social media, on like the BBC and CNN, claiming that liberal media is trying to make the Hindus look bad. They're even saying, "Oh, the BBC's got an anti-Hindu agenda." When you're stamping someone's head in, then you're entirely responsible for your own negative image. And of course, it's not every Hindu that's taking part. And I also agree that it's probably not entirely one-sided. So I don't think it's as black and white as the Hindus are bad, the Muslims are good. There have also been examples of Muslim extremism in India, without question. But this is happening on Modi's watch. And whilst there may be extremes on both sides, I'm sure India has its share of Islamists. It is a fact that Modi's government has enabled this with its rhetoric, with its placating of extremists within its ranks, um, and with its inaction. There's been other incidents where, in one case, a Christian had dung thrown at them. Police were nowhere to be seen. So whether it's that there's not enough police numbers, I don't know what the sort of numbers are. Whether it's because they're willfully turning a blind eye, as been the allegations. I'm not going to say that for a fact. I'm not there. But, that would seem to be the indication. It seems that they're acting now. Apparently, 500 arrests have been made. That's better than nothing. But it's absolutely sickening that this is happening in 2020 in the world's biggest democracy, that people could be so messed up with their religious fanaticism that they want to do this to other human beings. It's absolutely disgusting. I've also seen this whataboutery going on. People saying that, oh, well, look what happened in Pakistan. Here's my take. I'm not really interested in whether India or Pakistan has more religious nutters. I'm not really interested in which country has the worst track record when it comes to religious extremism. The fact of the matter is, both countries do. Both countries have these examples of religious extremism. At the moment, it's Hindus in India, but there's plenty of examples of Islamists in Pakistan targeting Christians and others. So this is a scourge on the subcontinent that it just seems to be um, really an endemic problem. Now, this is not to vilify all Indians, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all Indians are religious extremists, of course not. But there are, in my opinion, and from what I've observed, too many Indians in denial that their country has this problem. Um, and there may be some degree of hyperbole. I don't believe there's a genocide going on against Muslims. I think that's a pretty inflammatory thing to say because genocide denotes an active attempt to kill off an entire people. I think that's inflammatory. Nevertheless, it is a violent, intolerant pogrom. These would be considered hate crimes in any other country. Um, I've been watching coverage on NDTV, by the way, and I would say they've been quite. I haven't watched that much, but they've been quite balanced. So this idea that it's only outsiders that are critical of it isn't true. NDTV has been talking about extremism as well. New Delhi television. So, in my opinion, this is deeply damaging India's image, and it's not that this hasn't happened under other prime ministers. It has. India's always had problems with religious violence, but I do believe that the Modi administration has placated it. I mean, when you get senior BJP officials in Uttar Pradesh and elsewhere actually making open hate speech, they would be considered on the fringe in most other countries. But these people are making open vitriolic rants against non-Hindus in India. Um, that's repugnant, and they're um, senior ministers at state level. Then you get the likes of Yogi Adityanath, who is an utter extremist. Apparently, he was on the welcome committee when President Trump arrived in India. He was actually on a committee that welcomed the president. So you have extremists being treated as mainstream figures, being placated. I mean, the argument in Pakistan is the government has to toe a fine line because the mullahs have so much power. Well, are we now considering that the extremists in India have so much power that the government cannot speak against them in the world's biggest democracy? Come on, India. This is this is really damaging your international image. And by the way, this is one you really can't blame the British on. That's another go-to that some Hindu nationalists have. They say, "Oh, what about what the British done during the Raj?" No, it's not an excuse. 73 years ago, India's been an independent country for 73 years. This is entirely India's responsibility. And the thugs who are responsible for this are 100% responsible for their own behavior. Final few words. No, I'm not saying it's just Hindus. I am saying that this is wrong. Whoever is the perpetrators, whoever is the victims. So if innocent Hindus are also being attacked, that's equally wrong. But the bulk of this particular violence has been against Muslims in Delhi. That's what the evidence would indicate. A final point of observation: there are some in the West, some Britons and some others who are actually praising India, and they're praising these Hindu extremists because they're targeting Muslims. So their logic is, oh well, we've also experienced the Muslims. They figure this big homogenous term because of the Islamist extremism we've experienced. So they kind of think, oh, well done, India. They're taking care of it. And they have the same attitude about how China's treating the Uyghurs. That's an appalling attitude. Um, just because there is a real world problem with Islamic extremism doesn't justify ordinary Muslims being brutalized. That's a ridiculous logic. I mean, that is the logic of sheer tribalism. Now, us and them, as someone who believes in human rights, I don't care who the victim is. I don't care if they're black, white, brown, yellow. I don't care if they're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, atheist. Where there is brutality, it must be condemned. Period. and it's just very sad to see this happening. So I hope with these 500 arrests having been made, I hope there are stiff sentences. I hope there are long custodial sentences for the worst offenders. Not so long ago, incidentally, some of these Hindu extremists actually threatened to blow up British cinemas if they screened a controversial Bollywood film. Well, controversial for them, as it depicted the kissing scene. Religious extremism should not be tolerated. Wherever it rears its ugly head, it needs to be stepped on. And I think the placating of Hindu extremism in India, um, it's really damaging India's credibility as the world's biggest democracy and supposedly as a secular state. Um, so it's appalling. Um, I hope those who have been affected can begin to rebuild their lives. There have been worse pogroms in India. This isn't by any means the worst. The 2002 Gujarat violence killed over 1,000 people, left over 1,000 people dead. So this is by no means the worst, but it's still frightening when it happens, when you see the level of hate and the level of fanaticism that people will go to. It must be very frightening for those who are targeted, because it's a David and Goliath situation. How does one man take on a mob? It's absolutely disgusting. These cards need to be, I mean, the video footage is clear. So the evidence is there. Arrest them, prosecute them, make them face justice. Otherwise, there will just be Muslim reprisals and it'll be a never ending cycle. Anyway, that's my observation. And by the way, those who say, "Oh, it's just liberal media trying to make India look bad or making Hindus look bad," no, take some damn responsibility. Look at what's happening. You may not be doing it yourself, but look at those who are doing it in the name of Hinduism. Okay, and if you're not condemning them, then you're part of the problem.